Hello, everyone. My name is Bradley Baker, and I'm going to do this presentation on the confidence interval and hypothesis testing for means and methods of inference. So the question we were posed in the homework was, a study of stress during COVID-19 on your community college campus reported a mean stress level of 78 on a 0 to 100 scale, with the higher score indicating more stress. A sample standard deviation of 16 with a margin of error of 4 and 95% confidence. The study was based on a random sample of 64 undergraduates, and we were told to assume the student population was normally distributed. So, a little introduction to statistical inference. So, statistical inference helps us draw conclusions about a population based on the sample. There are two main methods. One is confidence intervals and then hypothesis testing. And the goal for all of this is to understand the true population values. And so pretty much the gist of all this is to determine if the numbers you were given are accurate and fall within the given set of data you're given. So understanding confidence intervals, our first method. So a confidence interval gives us a range where we believe the true value lies. So 95% confidence level means that we are 95% sure the true mean falls in this range, which is pretty accurate. And for the question posed in this study, the interval that I found, which I'll explain in a second, was 74 to 82. That was where the 95% sure lies. Let me hide this real quick. All right, so interpreting the confidence interval, this little graph down here I got on StatCrunch while doing my homework. Interpreting the confidence interval. So the sample mean we got was 78. The confidence interval, lower limit was 74.003319, which I'm just going to round to 74 for this. And the upper limit was 81.996681, which I just rounded to 82. And yeah, this is my little thing I made. What is hypothesis testing, our second method? So hypothesis testing begins with a claim. And the claim is null hypothesis. And pretty much you want to disprove or prove the null hypothesis, which is the average that's claimed or the hypothesized. And through this method, we find out through the hypothesis testing if it's true or not. So in our case, the null hypothesis is 75 with an average stress level, which is our average stress level out of the students. Our alternate hypothesis is not equal to 75. And this down here is my little graph I made in StatCrunch 2. So performing the hypothesis test. So with our sample mean of 78, our standard error of 2, our DF of 63, our T-stat of 1.5, our p-value of 0.1386, and a significance level of 0.05. So interpreting our hypothesis test. So since our p-value 0.1386 is greater than 0.05, which is the threshold to verify the null hypothesis, and since it is greater than that, we fail to reject the null hypothesis. And so conclusion for the null hypothesis test is we do not have enough evidence to say the stress level is different from 75. And we had 78. So connecting them both methods gave consistent results. 75 does fall within the 95% confidence interval range for our first method. In our second method, the hypothesis test also failed to reject 75 as the true mean. And this shows that these inference tools can work together to verify results. So these are the two charts that I got on StatCrunch just doing it, and it's just the t-summary confidence interval and the hypothesis test. Just this is what you see when you stack in all the data that was given. So this is my in my homework we had to write a little couple paragraphs, and so I just decided to include these to kind of piggyback off what I was saying earlier. So hypothesis testing and intervals are both ways to understand what's true about a larger group based on a sample. And a confidence interval gives us a range of values where we think the true number, like the average stress level, likely falls. And for this example, if the 95% confidence interval is 74 to 82, we believe the real average lies somewhere in that range. All right, so some takeaways, and then after this I have a second little paragraph. Takeaways: confidence intervals provide a range for the population mean. Hypothesis testing assesses claims about the population values. Both are essential tools in stats for making data-driven decisions. And this was the second paragraph I used, I wrote for my homework, and I think it is valuable in this context. So the hypothesis testing and confidence intervals are both great ways to find out what is true about a larger group based on a sample. A confidence interval gives the range of values where the true number is thought to be, such as in the case of the student's stress levels. So if the confidence interval is 95, we can say that the real average lies somewhere between 74 and 82. So 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81. And it's in there, we know, 95% true. Hypothesis testing. Hypothesis testing, though, is different. It begins with the null hypothesis, which starts with the claim. For example, we saw the stress level is 75, which was the claim. And if the data given gives strong evidence or not, we can determine if it is or is not, in fact, a rejected claim. In our case, the 75 stress level value is inside the confidence interval of 74 to 82, which fails to reject the hypothesis in this test, the null hypothesis. So they both showed us the same methods are related and came to the same conclusion that there was not enough evidence to show a stress level change. Thank you.